don't think this was the case with this movie. I think it was like in his head. So
I agree.
I really like that though, because it's like I like that the image is not of her like right before he killed her. It's like when she was at the bottom of the well, like with rats coming out of her mouth, like. That's the image that he has of her forever.
That's the last image that he has of her, and that's the image that he keeps seeing reliving over and over again. Yeah,
like he's not imagining or remembering her like in her pretty dress, and I thought that was really trippy.
Do you guys have questions?
I think, going back to what Emma said, like, do you think what she was trying to do was unreasonable? So, so just to, like, for the listeners, but the wife wanted to move to Omaha and, like, sell the acreage and everything. She wanted
her side or whatever,
side,
right?
100 acres of land, and then divorce him and then move to the city. But I'm curious to know, was that unreasonable of her to try to take the kid away or try to take them out of that like farm? Any opinions?
She offered him 50-50, sell this and I'll give you half of the money, get a divorce, and we'll leave. And then his first thought was like, well, who is Hank, the boy, gonna go with? And she was like, well, with me. And then she said, a 14-year-old boy belongs with his mother. And I'm just like, no. I just feel like that's not... Is that a thing at that time? I feel like it's not. I feel like children back then, like, they had to grow up sooner, and like just be adults and go get a job and make money for your family. And I feel like she just wanted him to stay a kid, and the dad kind of like, well, why can't they share that too?
Yeah, I think it's just this like I don't know, like a thing in culture that like if you're a mother and you don't have your kid, like you look like a bad mother for not having your kid. And if the kid's with the father, like, ooh, what did you do to not have your kid, So, of course, she's like, for my image, like, she just seemed like she, like, held her image and, like, what she did in, like, really high, like, regards. So I would think that, like, she would need her son along with him just for that assurance for her that, like, hey, I'm a good mother. If she wasn't a terrible mother, she wasn't the best mother, I don't think she had a connection with him because he was able to turn around and just kill her. Like the connection just wasn't strong enough for her to claim, like, he's got to be with me. So, I think that, like, kind of missed the mark. If she had said something like, we can share him, or you can keep him here, or I'll keep him in the summer, something different, I think it would have been a very, the end.
Yeah, or he can come in the summer here, or whatever.
Yeah, but he had a certain pride about not wanting it to go to that company, about wanting to keep it, local and not to this, like, big, major farming company. So, like, it was about the kid, but it was also about not losing half of his farm to these people, and he didn't want to shake the lawyer's hand from that company, and so
I just feel like if he was to sell the farm, the land, and not be there anymore, he would have to go to the city, where I think he knew that he wouldn't make it. Like, all he knows is farm life, and that's what he's best at. And the city, he had like a saying, like, that's a fool's place or something like that. Yeah, I just feel like he knew that he wouldn't make it in the city, and that's why he didn't want to leave that place at all. Not even just sell, half of it.
What about you, Wes? What do you think?
Well, they open the movie perfectly with what his kind of beliefs. He says like all a man has in this life is his home and his son or whatever,
his
right?
land and son. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I feel like that's what is ultimately his demise, is him being too prideful in that and kind of making the wrong decisions, and it all comes back to him like tenfold in the end, and nothing is really resolved.
Mm-hmm. I don't think he prioritized the right things. The fact that he says land first and not like his family, like family and land, like he says land and son, like his priorities were just all screwed up. He did act on like this impulsive thing, but he also planned it so well. Like these little like nuggets that he was just like providing his son, like, and then like these lies that he started to tell her, like, I'll become a mechanic, like, so yeah, it was on impulse, but like, no, you thought about it pretty long. You're tending to the farm, but you have all this time. So I feel like it was so planned at the same time.
Yeah, now that you say that, it was definitely premeditated in a lot of ways. But when I say kind of on impulse, I mean like the act of the murder. I feel like he immediately thought his back was against the wall, and she wasn't the nicest person, and I feel like if she would have just kind of, I guess, like worked with him, because he seemed like a little bit like mentally unstable from the beginning, you know what I mean, like his frame of mind, and you said like his kind of everything was kind of out of whack, you know what I mean, and that kind of rubs off on his son later, because his son kind of runs off and abandons him, and he's like, like I got his girlfriend ends up getting pregnant, and he feels like they need to run off, and he ultimately abandons his dad, who pretty much did all of this kind of with him in mind, you know what I mean, at the end of the day, and it was for nothing, because he doesn't care. He runs off, and he says, if you try to follow me, I'm gonna tell the police everything that you had me do. Pretty much like strong arming him into staying quiet, and then ultimately his son becomes a criminal on the run with his girlfriend who's pregnant, and then he gets his pregnant girlfriend shot and killed, and then he dies alongside her. And then there's some interesting symbolism there, because his son's body ends up being mutilated by rats as well once he comes back, and I thought that was super eerie too.
Yeah, I kind of disagree on that, on one part that I think you both, Emma and Wes, have touched on the fact that the wife was like mean. I don't think she was mean. I think her tone was like it was kind of sarcastic, like what are we doing here, like it was this tone of like not seriousness that comes out when she starts to drink, and she starts to tell him like don't like stick your willy or whatever she tells the son, like just keep it in your pants. But that lightheartedness, that I don't think she realizes she's being sarcastic, or that she thinks this is the farm life is a joke. I don't think she was being mean, but it definitely I don't think she meant it to be. I think it was meant to be more sarcastic, but even so, like not. I don't think she means to be sarcastic either. I don't know. It's weird. Like, but I don't think it's mean. I think it's just like, this is a joke. Like, we're living a joke life, and that's what I get from her and her tone. And I think that actress does a good job of kind of doing that like little like sarcastic tone. She's in another show. She's in House of Cards, and she's like a politician, and she's kind of two-faced. So I think that's kind of plays here too. Plays well, that she like thinks this life is a joke, and like, she doesn't mean to be sarcastic, but she is, and I think, I mean, deep down, maybe she is meaning to be sarcastic, so it's, yeah, but I don't think she's being mean, so I don't know. I know you guys, like, but you guys bring up really good points that she's, like, yeah, just her tone isn't the best. Like, if she would have phrased it differently, like Emma said, like...
I just mean, for her being his wife, I felt like she didn't really have that common respect that you would see.
It's like what Annie was saying. She didn't have a connection with her son. She didn't have a connection with Wilfred, the husband. The only time I even saw her touching him was when she was all drunk and happy, and
because
she, like,
he told her lies.
Yeah, jumped on his lap and, you know, told her what she wanted to hear, and then.
And at that moment, I feel like we're disconnected as an audience because you already know that he's just trying to get her guards down for the what's to come later.
I thought it was like, who taught him how to lie? He was so good. I believed it. I was like, wow, I'm eating this up. You're moving to the city? Wow.
Or when he talked to the sheriff or like anything like he or to the lawyer. When he talked to the sheriff, he was like a little like. There were some points
his face is too much.
Like, oh look, she took this pair of pants and this like
you don't need
she
to
must
see
not be
that.
coming back. Like he was doing a little too much. But
he says she never really cared for pants, but she took 2 pair or whatever. Just like really over explaining things.
Yeah, like, okay, he didn't need to know that. But when he is talking to the lawyer, it's so believable. Like, yeah, okay, where'd she go? I don't know.
Yeah.
And I believe you. But yeah, with the sheriff, with the oversharing, it's covering your bases and really feeling like I've got to explain this because I have an explanation. You just got to hear it. It was a little... He was just kind of evil. He really is, like, turning into, like, what he feared. Like, oh, that damnation, you know? So, yeah, I thought it was good.
I really loved how I think picking the 20s or whatever for this piece was perfect because, like you said, it's passable that people would just believe that this lady walked off on her family like that for whatever reason, and because there wasn't things like forensics and things, and you couldn't go out there and kind of really do any kind of evidence scene, so they just kind of let it go. You know what I mean? And that plays a part later on towards the end when they say, "Oh, we found this body in a ditch," and they automatically think that it's what was her name in the movie? Alvarette or something like that. Arlette, yeah. That, and they're like, she has 2 back molars missing.
Was that her?
Yeah. Did she? Did your wife had 2 molars missing?
He doesn't even confirm or deny. He kind of just like
he smirks like, "Oh, you guys are so dumb. I fucking killed her. She's in my well or whatever."
Yeah.
Well, even when the sheriff... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say he just walks in and he's like, "Oh, nothing to see here."
Even when at the very beginning when he shows up and he's like looking around the house and he comes in and he's like, okay, that sounds like it's possible. And then at the end they're like explaining, oh, we're filling in the well because the cow fell in. And then if you look, he pulls out his watch. And he's like, look, like, oh, I gotta be somewhere. Like, he wants to get out of there. Like, he doesn't even want to be there.
Yeah.
I feel like he gives, because they were obviously buddies.
Yeah.
From before then. So I feel like he gets an automatic pass almost because of that, too.
Some small town shit.
Yeah, it was just, like, very easy for that to happen. It was so easy.
He was, like, counting on that. You could just tell. He was like, I'm gonna have this kind of, alibi that's kind of passable, and we're gonna get away with this. So.
There was some sort of like sadness in me when he's like, oh, we found this lady, because like how many times has that happened over the course of like, decades and centuries that like people go missing and like they're never really found. Like no one, I mean, yeah, she's her truth comes out because he